Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. I have a really special guest here today. Make sure I preference Dr. Danielle McGinnis. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
We're doing good. So guys, you might remember back a couple episodes. She's definitely the better half of this duo for sure. Rick Alexander, my good buddy and amazing coach. This is his girlfriend. And we got to meet in Denver in February. So that was kind of cool. And I wanted to bring her on because we're both training for Ironmans right now. And she is a coach. She's a doctor. She's just a personal, all those things. So why don't you kind of get us going on kind of your story, and you can start from wherever you really want to.
Well, I guess I will start. I'll start after graduating physical therapy school, or kind of the nudge that I had after I graduated physical therapy school, not to go down the traditional route of practicing physical therapy in the Western medical model. And that was last May. And it really brought me to my edges, because everything that I've ever known was about building a life of safety and security and a solid foundation. And so I think it was when I was walking across the graduation stage, getting my doctorate, and I didn't feel any sense of fulfillment whatsoever. And I was like, oh, that's a message. That's a universal message. You got to listen to that. And so at that time, I was kind of parting ways in a previous business that I had built during physical therapy school. And I decided to, for the first time in my life, kind of go all in on myself and really give myself permission to do what I wanted to do. And so how that started was transitioning kind of what I was doing in my other business with a strength and conditioning background for over 10 years. And starting a business called Alpha Femme, Human Healing and Optimization. But what was different about Alpha Femme was that I was only serving women, and I was bringing in different components of the strength and conditioning game. So not only am I bringing in the masculine principles that are devotion to your practice and really staying committed to the process and understanding the doing aspect, but also really diving deep inwards into yourself. And so I added the femme aspect, which is kind of the feminine energy. And so I constructed a Born to Heal course. So I help women really just navigate their emotional space and increase their emotional intelligence. And I find that by bridging the gap between those energies, I have helped a number of individuals come out on the other side of these programs just really full of compassion for themselves. And I think that is amazing, because I said this yesterday on my Instagram Live. Like, I love Jordan Peterson's quote, like, if you want to change the world, start with yourself and work outwards. Mm-hmm. And so if these women are changing their lives, not only are they impacting their own lives, but they're impacting the lives of their significant others, their kids. And so they can actually understand the roles that they are playing a little bit better. And they can actually do that in their essence instead of being somebody else. So it's really about embodiment of who you are. And I think that Alpha Femme, I'm really proud of it so far, because I really haven't chased numbers, goals, metrics. I've really just chased human connection. And I have really seen a massive transformation in a lot of humans. And I have really felt like our relationship has given them permission to embody their soul's path, whatever that may be. So that's what I'm currently doing. Like you said, I'm also training for an Ironman. So a lot of balance, I feel like, is going on in my life. So I definitely do have to balance the masculine of, the Ironman and then the feminine. And I think especially what's going on collectively, it's really challenged me to try to live in a place of equanimity and not be seeking and searching the answers, but really just living on that line in between both worlds. So
no, amazing. And your program's great. I follow you on Instagram with my clients. And it's so funny that you made that point. There's lots of stories they tell each other and are told each other and all these things, right? There's all these external forces and like, who do I need to be and all this stuff. And I tell them it's simple as this. The world only needs one thing from you every day, to show up as your best version of yourself. And if you do that, it reciprocates in your business, in your love life, in your kids. And they it's easy for me to say that, but it truly is that simple, and I think that's the way you believe too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. And I think that what I've found is that, that statement, it's that simple, but it's also being processed through the complex human experience. And so it's simple, but also it's like kind of nuanced, right? So it's like simple and both and. So I think that our culture is very rational brained. And I think that there's a lot of, especially in the personal development space, a lot of pressure to believe things or use affirmations or tell yourself things. And it's like, Rick and I were talking about this the other day, and it's like, well, if you tell yourself something, it works until it doesn't, And so unless you believe that deep down in your cells of your body, you truly don't believe it. And you're probably not going to act in a way that reflects that. And so what I've found and what I've kind of used and pulled from my physical therapy background is using the body as your best friend, like using your body. And I think the intelligence within your body is much more wise than we give it credit for. And we try to outthink things that we're feeling. And I think there's a balance there. So what it's called basically is either a top-down approach to healing or a bottom-up approach to healing. And so a rational brained human, which is a lot of like cognitive behavioral therapy, is a top-down approach. So tell me about what you're thinking and feeling, and let's bring awareness on it, and let's try to make changes that way, right? And so what I try to do is encourage, which is really hard, mind you, to have my clients and my patients work from the bottom up. And so, okay, so when you're challenged with whatever challenge, what is your body telling you about that? Is it a stressful response? Are you excited about it? Are you in joy? Like, are you in flow? Or does it make you really anxious and fearful and guilty and all of these different things, and trying to locate these different sensations so that we can actually work from the bottom up? Because if we understand what's going on in our body, we don't have that sense of that desire to grasp or control our experience. We know that we're safe, and we know that we can start to explore different spaces with curiosity instead of control. And so that's how I encourage a lot of my clients to kind of approach any program that they're doing within Alpha Femme. It's the physical side. It's like, okay, we're doing a deload week right now in the program. And I'm like, you guys, like, this deload is probably going to be the hardest part of the program because you have to slow down. And so I love deload weeks for programming because it really brings up a lot of old narratives. And with those old narratives carry a lot of shame and guilt in the body, that they think that they should be somebody else, or they need to look like this to be successful. And so letting them experience that and meeting them where they're at in that experience has been very transformational with what we're doing in Alpha Femme. And so, and I think maybe this is maybe a gift of being a female. I don't know, just a very emotional being that I can sense when something's going on internally with somebody else. And so it's interesting. Rick and I have kind of like a good balance there, because without him, I would probably be floaty in my body. So he kind of keeps me like external and pushing and striving for more, but I keep him grounded and into his body and feeling. And I think that before I met him, it was interesting. I think it was the shadows that we kind of had in our relationship when we first started dating, that he was challenging a lot of my toxic feminine traits. Yep. And so a lot of the overdoing and the shameful responses when I didn't overdo or strive or try to be perfect or get validated. And so he mirrored that really gracefully, mind you. And it's really helped me, I think, stand in my feminine power a lot more. So kudos to him for, doing that. And I think I did the same thing for him with his experience. But it comes full circle about talking about my clients, because you heal in relationship to others. Other people are going to mirror your, I guess, places where you could expand further. And it's our willingness and our curiosity to kind of open that door a little bit and just peek in and see what's going on, versus, the cultural narrative is just like, let's bang the door open and just get in there. Like, like, what is the quote? It's like, nothing good comes from your comfort zone, right? And it's like, Rick and I had this conversation. A lot of good things come from your comfort zone. Internal safety does. And you can ground yourself in knowing who you are. And so if you use your comfort zone to figure out who you are, going outside of your comfort zone feels a lot better. Sure. So yeah, that's kind of my approach to, that's a long-winded approach.
No, it's great. It's next level. This conversation's already like up here, but it's interesting because a lot of my friends are girls. This week especially, I've done basically a not on purpose, but it happened, a 7-day immersion coaching with a really good friend of mine, like 4 or 5 hours a night of like awkward, like self-realization. Right. And what I found out about women, especially when I coach them or help them, is two things. One, your external forces that are pushing against you are far greater than men. So there's different things, but this is something I noticed about everybody, and I won't let anybody slide with this anymore in the coaching. Everybody, when they're talking to me, they want to put context around every argument or something. I don't care. I don't need the context of the story. I'm only worried about you. I know, but you need to understand that this happened. It doesn't matter. Because when I remove the context, then I can actually look at the root of the problem and look at it from a fresh set of eyes, right? And so by doing that, it just, boom. I mean, they don't have a leg to stand on, because now you couldn't build up the story and make me go look, it's like almost like they're making me look over here, right? And I'm like, okay, that doesn't work for me because I'm right here. And I'm right in your wheelhouse that you don't want me to be. And I'm not, but like what I've had to learn, this is my biggest transformation with coaching, is two things. Everybody's not me. I'm a hard charger, like a hard charger. I have like 7 businesses. I Ironman train, and it was my business partner was like, hey, you're going to kill us. Nobody rolls like you roll. And it was in that moment that I was like, okay. And that's what that's kind of what you're talking about, is like coming to them at where they are in their place and not projecting who you are. Like you inspire me every day, right? Like you're training and you're coaching and you're doing all these things. But like maybe that girl you're training or that woman that you're training is like, she's just getting started in the personal development space. And if you hand her a David Goggins book, she's going to be like, no, thank you. I'm out, but like I've done that in the past when I first got started. I was like, whoa, way too soon. Like you got to like work your way into that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So what that brings up for me is you can't expect you from other people. right? And I think anytime you expect you from other people, it will always leave you disappointed or lacking. And I think that when you're coaching people and they're hanging their hat on their stories, that is their way of creating external safety because they don't feel safe inside. And so for them to swing the door open and look at something that is a really deep core wound for them probably feels close to death. And so our psyche is going to do anything to possibly get around that. And so I try to look at those coping strategies as their survival tools. And man, we should be really thankful for our body and our human experience that we have adapted to the place where we have a system that's trying to keep us safe. But I think that with that, we have to realize that we don't have to be in an adversarial relationship with our existence. Like, we are here, and most of the time, I'd say like 90% of the time, we're not facing death. And so what these core wounds represent is our inability to look at the death of that version of us. And so a really good exercise that I give my clients is it's kind of a visualization. So you act like you're standing outside of a building or a house or something, and you can see in the window, but no one can see out the window. And so inside that window, what you see is the thing that pisses you off the most, makes you angry. It could be the thing that makes you feel really sad. A number of things, any emotion like anger, fear, guilt, grief, any of them. You can envision something going on in that room or somebody that triggers that response from you. And so if you can look in that window and kind of separate yourself from that wounded version of you, just so you can see a little bit. So you can see in that window and say like, oh, that person, oh, that pisses me off so bad. And you can see that part of you that really wants to truly just punch that person in the face. But your ego says if you punch that person in the face, you're a bad person. But it's like, truly, we actually need to move through that experience or visualize ourselves moving our bodies through that experience, letting that anger release, right? And so if we can see ourselves actually follow through with those emotions that we're feeling, or if it's sadness, maybe we just are standing in a room with one of our caregivers from our childhood, and all we really want is attention and a hug. And if you can witness that sadness understands its place in our psyche. And so that exercise really helps you separate the different parts of yourself instead of just thinking that you're so wounded and then basically your ego is running the show. Yourself, your true self, your essence, who you are is not running the show. Your ego is. And so I like to think of it as a term called internal leadership. So it's the self, your essence knows how to communicate with your ego and the different parts of yourself and say like, okay, I understand that you're feeling this way, but you don't have to over control that because I have control of this. I can manage this without you acting that way. And so once you do these different exercises, you can let those parts understand the role that they play. They're trying to keep you safe. They're trying to be seen. They're trying to be heard. All of these different things that we truly desire and want. And then when we're working in relationship with other humans, we're not projecting anymore because we're coming from ourselves. We're not coming from a place of fear or anger or sadness or loneliness. We're actually coming from a place of fulfillment. And so that's one of the best exercises that I think has really helped my clients. And it's difficult too, because you as the coach or the doctor have to hold enough space and separate yourself from your experience about their experience. So it's like, it's easy for us to jump to the fixing mentality because that is the personal development space. let me make you not so comfortable, but also we're going to throw you into discomfort all the time. Makes no sense. But anywho, it's like, okay, instead of fixing it, maybe I can just be here with you while you experience it. Right? And so for me, I think that's what's the most healing about relationship is that I kind of put this in my IGTV last night about kind of what's going on collectively. It's like some people never grew up with safety. When they were crying, they didn't have a caregiver to soothe them. You know, if they saw violence, they didn't have somebody to soothe them and say, it's going to be okay. Your life is not in danger. And so I look at that as an absolute privilege that although I do have my shit, I've worked through a lot of it, that I can hold space and be with other people in theirs. And I think that that's really, I don't know, that's one of the biggest blessings I think I can take away from this past year of transitioning out of what I should be doing into what I think is my actual calling. But that was a really tough road personally. And it wasn't easy, but I think if you surround yourself with people who understand and have been there and just hold space, I think it's extremely healing. So,
So hold on, I need to collect my thoughts because that was so damn good. I believe that the universe has its timing, and I don't think it's an accident that I randomly DM'd you and we're talking today, because everything that you just said, I just hacked out of my own self in the last 8 days. I literally unlocked the space that was holding me back from being the coach that I needed to be. And that space was, I always felt the need to fix. And I always felt the need to, because I, let's say I know the answer, right? But what I did is instead, I allowed her to talk for 50 minutes without me saying a word. And she figured it out for herself. And she worked through it herself. And then I was able to coach from here instead of back here, right? And she straight up told me that I've never had anybody create the space of safety for me to even have that conversation. And that's when the light bulb went off. And I'm like, holy shit. Like the one skill that I couldn't master, I can now do, and realize that it's not about what I have to say all the time. It's about creating exactly what you said. It's about creating that space because, you know, one of my biggest mentors, he coaches like high-end CEOs. Dude is like my favorite human in the world. He said, Austin, if you understand that everybody walking around in this world is hurt, he goes, you won't have any attachment to anything. And when I removed attachment and expectations from how somebody needs to enter me or interact with me, I'm never upset because I can't control if you had a bad day. And that's where you're coming from a place. I'll just use me as an example. There's two people in my life that can trigger me off like a banshee.
Yeah,
it's my ex-wife and my dad. And I literally had a coaching call with my coach, but the hour before that was like I called it a 30-car pileup. I literally came on the call seething out of my teeth. Like he hasn't seen that person ever. And he's like, who is this? Like, how are you this mad? And what I realized, because I was an alcoholic and I had a drug addiction, the version of me that exists today, the one that's happy as fuck and loose and free, was protecting the old versions of me because I don't want to go back there. And they are back there. So instead of being mad about it, you champion that guy to go, no, motherfucker, you're moving forward. And that's what he was there. But in the moment, I'm like upset with myself that I got upset. But then I'm realizing like what we call the rhino is just protecting this space that I'm in currently and loving life. And when you look at it from that context, the mood dropped. Like I literally changed into a different person on the call And
Right.
it's just an amazing when you have somebody that can create that space and put a mirror up from you that knows you, that can identify those things. Because you as a person, I think it's hard to step back at sometimes, especially when you're upset, and say like, hey, this isn't really me, but but in life, I think everybody takes things with such an absolute, like, that's not how it works. Like, when I had Rick on, like, I got laid off like a couple months ago, and like, same thing with you. I'm betting on myself and life is great. Right. But like, I didn't know what we were going to do. And like, everybody's answer is like, oh, I got to have an answer. Like, I got laid off at 10 o'clock in the morning. I got to have an answer by 10:15.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't hang out with yourself on one afternoon and like be yourself.
Totally. It's like, when did we decide that we're God and we know all the answers? I think that when we realize that we don't, but also understanding that we've always had our back. We've always had our own back. And I think that's kind of like the weird line with like self-love, self-compassion. It's like, well, like I talked about earlier, like if you tell yourself you love yourself enough, it works until it doesn't. But until you actually act in a way that treats yourself with compassion, and that is honoring the resiliency that you've had over the past and realizing, that's where the combination of those body sensations and then pulling in the cognitive awareness and saying like, that's over, the past is in the past, and now I'm here. And I think that, when we tell ourselves like, oh, I actually, and one of my like rock bottom moments kind of around it was like December 2018. I just had this complete fall to the bottom. I was just like wearing this complete mask, and I was so miserable inside. And I was like, oh my gosh, I need to get out of this situation. I need to get out of this relationship. I need to get out of this business. I need to get out. It was like the universe was like telling me, and it had been telling me for years. But then I got the cosmic 2x4 to the face and was like, no, get the fuck out. And so it took like a mild stint of depression to kind of get out. But all the meanwhile, it's like all these people are looking up to you as a role model. And so I think that fall to the bottom, but doing it with grace was one of the ways that I realized my capacity for compassion, because I can hold compassion for other people. So why can't I hold it for myself? And then I started to realize, oh my gosh, like you were doing the best that you could. And when I ended up leaving that business, I did it with, I feel like looking back, like the absolute most grace that anybody could leave a business of that level that I helped start, but I didn't get credit for, and I didn't get credit for any of it. And so I think I chose grace instead of power. And I think that's the surrendering is really uncomfortable. But I think that is, that's the feminine power, right? Is you can be in absolute chaos everywhere, but you can be grounded and you can be graceful and you can go with the flows of life. That's feminine power. And that's what I hope to coach people through with my experience. And I think that there's a shadow to personal development, because that answer thing you were talking about, it's like everyone claims to have the answers. There's like an undertone, subliminal messaging of, I have the answers. You need fixed and I can fix you. And it's like, I think that the people who are drawn to me understand that I don't have the answers. I don't claim to have the answers. I don't know what's best for you. You know what's best for you. And giving them that space to figure it out without any timelines, dates, goals, expectations, the things that drive the personal development space forward. It's almost like that doesn't exist in my coaching program, because that doesn't really exist in the being. So I think that, like that development, yes, we're always growing and evolving. We always should develop who we are. But I think that what we're finding right now is that we're actually just having trouble being in the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't comfortable with the version of us. And so if we're not comfortable with the version of us, I don't think that we're going to be able to transcend that from a productive place and move forward and help other people. And I think that's Rick and I called it the shadow of personal development, is that too much growth too fast.
Yep.
So
I want to hit 2 points. It is scary as shit how many things we have in common. I lost my first big business and left my career that I had for 20 years. And I was like, this is going to be my thing. And I got, long story short, he said, she said, whatever. I lost 25 grand. And in that moment, when I was playing the victim for a day, I had an epiphany. And I said, the way that you handled this transition will forever cement who you are as a person.
Beautiful.
And I just handled it as professional shit. And then guess what? All the big dogs were looking and they watched me handle it. And now I'm working with all of them. So if I would have got crazy and done some stupid shit, they'd be like, that's a child. I can't work with them. But it actually served me. It's the best money I ever lost. But the point on personal development, I couldn't agree more. I think that I get to a point with personal development where it's intoxicatingly annoying. Like all the accountability shit, I'm like, I can't. Because with the personal development, they don't allow you any space to, like you said, to just be. And it's a process. And if you're building your life on legacy and who you are when you leave this world, it doesn't have to be done tomorrow. And God love your boyfriend. God love him. At the end of the workshop, he told me something that has changed my life for the rest of my life and has changed 30 other people's life, because I tell everybody that I meet this same story. He said, Austin, all this shit's great. It's really great. You're doing good. You're changing. It's all great. But you need to understand something very clearly. He said, if you don't understand that there's nowhere to get, there's always another real estate deal. There's always another week. There's always another client. If you don't wrap your mind around that there's always going to be another one, you'll never be happy.
Totally.
And it was holy fuck. Holy shit. He is 100% right. Because it was always the next deal. It was always this. And I have found so much peace in the process, right? And my favorite line right now is, get married to the process, divorce from the results. And I am getting my rocks off and having so much fun developing as a coach, as a podcast host, as an investor, as a person, right? And I'm not perfect. But what I do show up every day, I take ownership of my shit. And I say, hey, maybe I'm not where I need to be, but I guarantee you I'm going to get there. And they're like, okay, I could deal with that. But that's acknowledgement that I don't need to be anything for anybody, right?
Totally. Yeah, I feel that so deeply. I think that honestly, Rick was the person that really helped me see that too. He was the person that, because before him in this business relationship, it was pretty toxic and a really negative power dynamic. And I just really had low self-worth. I didn't have a lot of self-worth outside of what was validated. And he was the first person to make me realize that oh, you're solid gold. You don't have to be anybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that I definitely owe some credit to him for kind of being a catalyst and a really amazing mirror to let me know that he kind of put that spark in my soul to kind of be the phoenix and rise back up from the bottom and be the person that I was meant to be. And man, it's just, I made a post like this one time. It's we're all looking for permission slips to be who we are, but they don't exist. But it's until we, are up against really good relationships, we kind of get those permission slips. And man, what a perfect example is like, I did all this investing in myself and personal development work and working through my shit last year. And then I meet Rick and it's like, oh gosh, like what an amazing human. And, he was like, we were traveling and like doing a lot of things. And I just felt guilty. I felt so guilty about it because I just had been treated like shit for so long that I was like, I don't deserve this. Like, I totally don't deserve this.
Yeah.
Like, let me help you pay for this. And that's like kind of the toxic feminine, right?
Yep.
It's like the inability to receive. And it was, I'll thank my mom for this one. I was talking to her on the phone one day and she was like, Danielle, are you ever going to let somebody truly love you? And I was like, oh, shit. It's like, what a great mirror though, So when we feel like we hear those things that's what I'm talking about, those sensations in your body. Like when you hear things that you just feel like they're true, like take some space and acknowledge that, because a lot of times we're so quick and fast to jump over those things that we don't have a good relationship with those sensations. But it's like, those are the GPS to point us in the direction of where we need to go. Mm-hmm. But we just have to listen to it. And so, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know.
So it's so crazy that you're saying this, because what I'm realizing, especially with women, I have a new rule. You cannot lecture me on any relationship advice if all the men you dated are pieces of shit.
Oh,
because you don't have a leg to stand on. Because and what that does to them is it doesn't allow them, just like you said, it doesn't allow them to receive love. So here's what happens. Me, I give with no expectations, and I'm a giver. It's what I do. There's a part in anybody's mind, meaning a friend, whatever you want to call it, a family member, that is sitting back going, what's his angle? What's his angle? Because all the previous relationships, there was an angle. Well, I'm trying to manipulate you to go here. When you truly just give and you've never received that way, it's just such an uncomfortable feeling, right? And here's the scary thing that I'm working through, and I've never admitted this on podcast, but fuck it. I'm dealing with a little bit right now, like there's a part of me that feels like I'm a little bit of a lone wolf when it comes to helping. And I asked my buddy, I said, am I a lone wolf, or am I just such a giver that this is what I do? And I came to the realization that I give so much because I've never truly felt loved. And so by me giving over excessively amount, I don't allow you to get close to me. And totally. I had a friend point it out to me. She says, listen, all you do is give, phone calls, help everybody. And she looked me dead in the eye and said, when do you fill up yourself? And I was like, holy fuck my ass.
Those mirrors are amazing.
And here's the true story. And we'll save the whole story for another day. But true story. I was going to go help them because we were with the group, right? We're out in Joshua Tree. I was going to go help them because it's my nature. Something inside of me, deep down, said, no, this is for you. And the wind was blowing and it was beautiful. The sun was going down and I'm not shit. So I don't even give a fuck. Fuck y'all if you're embarrassed for me. I danced by myself to my favorite EDM guy for like 4 hours straight. And it was the first time in 38 years I felt like I did something only for me.
Dude, that's receiving. That is receiving joy. That's receiving love. And maybe it's not from a person, but it's from an experience. And that's really beautiful. I think that the masculine, definitely there's like this instinctual desire to provide, right? To provide for the female. That's like within our DNA.
You probably already know this. I don't even have to tell you because you're smart. You're smart. I'm always the one checking. Like, are you okay? Are you okay? And then when you
Yeah.
and then when you meet a strong woman, she's like, hey, motherfucker, I'm good. Leave me alone. And that's when you're like, okay, I don't need to ask. But that's like my nature, right? Like
Totally. Yeah. So that feminine quality of receiving, being able to like kind of balance that with that masculine quality of providing is really, I think, what would put you in your essence. And I think that, talking about that, like that joy and that flow and that excitement for life, I think that those things are things that, some people experience them other ways. Some do psychedelics, some get close to God, some ride their bike, some whatever, like there's so many different ways that we can create joy in our life, writing, music, all these different things. But it's like a lot of times people think that they can't create from that place. They have to create from this place of suffering or this place of exhausting yourself. And it's like, what would it look like to create from a place of joy? I think that is, especially right now with what's going on in the collective, it's like how many people out there have felt guilty for feeling any kind of joy right now, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, I'm a human, so why would I deny that? I think that saying that like we can have these really low states, but also receive joy and create from that place. So we can be sad or longing and still feel something else. So the both and the dialectics of our human experience. And I think that that's what's really helped me as a white female kind of continue to use my voice right now is the fact that I can be angry and sad and upset and pissed and guilty and all of these things and still show up in love. And that is really hard, but that's why you do this work. You don't do this work to like reach a goal or make money or whatever. You do this goal so you can show up in love and do what you love to do. And I think that not a lot of people are giving themselves permission to do that. And I think it starts with receiving. So
true story, and I'll save a lot of my personal life for later. But getting divorced right now, or I'm already divorced. But I've been traveling a little bit by myself, and I was on the West Coast for like a month, and I was in California and Malibu and Tahoe and Arizona, and I'm moving to Arizona soon. I'm so happy that I'm almost guilty. I'm so happy. Like I'm like, you can't feel this happy. Like you don't deserve it. And then I'm like waking up the next day going, no, you do deserve it. Like you do deserve to be and see what you were saying about creating from a place of joy. The reason the podcasts are fire, the reason that business is going bananas right now for us is because I'm creating from a place of pure, unadulterated fucking joy for life. And and what I was called to do is all coming right now, and it's hitting all the cylinders, and it's like, holy crap. And so what my coach said to me that changed my life is he said, can you imagine all the things that you're accomplishing from a place of suffering and a prison sentence? What would it look like if you dropped the anchor and you were up here? He's like, that would be insane to see you fly that high. And that's what's taking place right now. And it's like, it's all like, and then what happens in that moment is that things start showing up to you in the universe that you didn't even know were available because you're in a different, you're in a different energy, right?
Yeah, it sounds woo-woo and weird, but that's manifesting. You're attracting a specific energy towards you. And typically when you're in that space, people that are like-minded and think about the same things that you do or think in the same ways that you do kind of creep up into your space. And you're like, oh, wow, cool. And I think it's honestly because when we're not in that space where we have these shackles on, we have these, our wounded self is running the show and we're just scared. And I think that, if we just realize like, everyone's fucking scared. No one has it figured out.
Yeah.
I was talking to Rick about, I have a younger brother. He's like 15, 16. And I'm like, God, I could not imagine growing up right now in the state of times. Like, it's crazy. And it's like interesting because I was like, what age did I kind of like differentiate that like humans don't have their shit figured out? And I think it's honestly, when I started PT school, so it wasn't like until I was 26. But now I think it's great because I think that our youth is starting to see like, oh, there's a lot of broken, hurt people out there.
Yep.
And I think it just takes the conversations to realize like, oh, that exists within me too, but I don't have to live that way. Right.
There are 38 and 42-year-old people that I'm coaching right now, and we're addressing issues when they were 8. Like, this is real life. Like,
yeah, that's when it happens typically is
childhood. And it's like think about that, guys. Like, let that roll around in your brain. Like, something that happened, like, no bullshit. My coach he's fucking like 40. I apologize if you're younger than that, but he's a spry dude. But when he had to wear glasses when he was like 6, that literally like tore him up for like 30 years. Like, people don't get these like moments that you don't even know happened. Or like, and for me, I blame myself for my parents' divorce for 20 years at 17. And then in 20 years, the story got revealed to me that it was bullshit. And I had my entire identity wrapped up into that story. And then I woke up the next day not even knowing who the F I was.
Yeah, that is the scary place to be in. Yeah. Very scary because you have to rebuild. That's the beauty of rock bottom. So, right, is like you've essentially been laid bare and you see everything that's what you thought was. I think that's what betrayal is too, right? When you feel betrayed, it's like, I posted something yesterday about, when people think that they can get away with something. And it's like, no, if you rip the fabric of reality out from someone's feet, like something's going to happen, and like that person, me, for example, was so confused. I was like, how could that person do that to me? How could I fall for that? Was I that dumb then? Am I that dumb now? Who the fuck am I? So like you're in this place of literally you just have to completely rebuild from, where you're at. And I think that that's a really scary place to be in, but I think it's a beautiful place to be in because there's a lot of grief in that place because a lot of you has died. A lot of your soul has, or your ego has kind of died off. And I think that with grief breaks us open to increase our capacity to love more. I think that's true with anything. If it's death, if it's, actual death or ego death, I think that if we're feeling some form of grief, it's just cracking our heart a little bit more so we can love more. And that's not a love and light bypass because that shit hurts hard, and I think that being vulnerable enough to be in that place, right? And I think that when you surround yourself with people who can't stand you in that place because it's uncomfortable for them, you might need to take some solitude and be in that place, right? Yep. Because you don't want to move from a place from somebody else's discomfort, because typically that's what we did when we were kids, when we were wounded. Our parents, our caregivers, whomever was uncomfortable with the way that we were behaving and acting. So we decided, oh, we can't be that human anymore. We have to do something else. And so, yeah, we don't want to go back into the wounds that actually got us there in the first place. So, but I think that that's wisdom too. I think that that is, taking that and learning and growing and being in the fear but creating safety for yourself. I think it's all part of it.
I've never thought of it that way. That is, I'm like already sending this podcast to like 10 people right now as I'm recording it. Like the moment we get off of this, Danielle, I'm just going to say it while we're on camera so I can have proof. This is like best conversation I've ever had in my life. Like, it's so great.
Aw.
You're crushing it so bad. Like, but what I want to make sure I talk about, because y'all inspire me, and I know it's not easy because I asked him about it, and I want to ask you from a feminine point of view.
Okay.
Y'all's relationship, I'm
Mhm.
sure, is not rosy all the time. You're both coaches. You're both deep thinkers. But
Yeah.
what I admire about you is there seems to be a common thread, meaning we're going to grow. We don't know what we're going to look like on the other side of this, but we're happy to grow together. I feel like, and I'm not trying to tout your relationship as the best thing on the planet, but what I'm touting it as is like, I feel like it's one of the more honest relationships that I've seen. And of course it's not always great, but like, let's just talk on like your relationship with him and like what you've learned in that kind of space.
So this coming Monday, we will be officially together for a year. So that's exciting. But when we met, everything kind of went really fast. But it was kind of like when I met him, I actually went through the Clarity Academy. He coached me through a lot of my bullshit, which is interesting because he was like, when you were going through it, like I didn't think, anything more of you than my client. And it's just interesting now that we're together, how we just help each other through things. But this past year together has been the hardest of my whole entire life. But also, I would say the most blessed of my entire life. Because what Rick does for me is he invites me forward always. And it's up to me to take that call, right? But what we've done every day for the past year is every morning we say, I choose you. And we are making a conscious choice that we choose each other. And so if I consciously choose him, that means I am also choosing to participate in some of the bullshit that happens in relationships, right? To participate in the conflict that might come up, to participate in being there and being the space holder, to participate in not projecting my shit onto him. And I think there's another element to that too, is the acceptance that one day he might not choose me, but that has nothing to do with me.
Boom.
I think that is what makes our relationship so beautiful, because there's no contract, right? It's not like I'm only going to choose you if you choose me, or I'm only going to love you if you love me in this way. And that's not saying I tolerate bullshit. That's not saying that. Like, there's a difference between compassion and tolerance. Fine line there. What that's saying is I'm okay with there being a death of something, whether it's the death of me, the death of him, the death of our relationship, whatever. Like, have to be okay with that, because that is truth. That's going to happen, whether it's a physical death or, the death of the human that I chose to be in a relationship, like the ego death type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's inevitable. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
I'm never dating the same person every day. So that's hard. That's a challenge, to be in a relationship. And with both of us being we just seek truth so much, that can be a gift and also not a gift.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we can float away from each other. But I think that reminding ourselves, like, with that choice comes a responsibility to stand up and say what you need. So if we're distancing ourselves from each other, I have to say, like, hey, Rick, like, I'm feeling lonely right now. Like, I need to spend some time together, and like him being okay with what I need, and not saying that, I think we have to acknowledge what I break it down to, like, his shit, my shit, and our shit. And so what's his is his. And I trust him enough to communicate his needs to me. And so if he needs help with his shit, he can express it to me. And the same goes with me, where it's like my shit. If I need help with my shit, I have to tell him. Like, I totally have to like communicate that. And for me, that's the other side of the collapsed feminine, is a woman who can't say what she needs because she thinks that she can just do it all herself.
Mm-hmm.
She can people please and just leave herself out to dry. And that's not fair to me. That's not the compassionate thing to do for myself. So I think that letting him know what I need sometimes, or what I'm feeling, sometimes it feels like I'm going to vomit, and it feels like I'm just literally eating a shoe. Like, it sucks, but that's what it takes to love unconditionally, without boundaries, without barriers and walls. So I think that that's kind of how I approach our relationship. I would think that he would probably say the same thing if he were asked that way. But like I said, I'm the more feely one of the two. So I don't know.
It's the space that I'm moving into, is that my thing is everybody wants to put absolutes on everything. Well, if you meet this girl and like she's never going to break your heart, it's like no, in like 3 years she might be a different person and want different things, and she doesn't want anything to do with it.
I hope she is. I hope she's a different person.
Exactly. but what I'm saying is, people would rather not go after that and not have that 3 years, because what if happens in 10 years if she breaks my heart? But like, what I'm completely okay with right now is like, maybe in that moment in time, it's exactly what we both needed, and I'm okay with that, because I'm vulnerable enough to drop my heart out there and go, it's okay. Like, if I break it, it's only going to sew it up and make it stronger so I can love even more. Right. But you have to really get to a place of detachment on, this is a contract. Like you said, this is a contracted structure. It doesn't work that way. Like, there are people that float in and out of your life, meaning people that I have met on my travels recently, that I think that in that moment in time, not saying like, I'm not saying sexually or anything. I'm just saying a conversation. Just that was the exact conversation at the exact time, at the exact point that I needed it. And then this person randomly showed up. Like, literally, I'm not kidding you. The girl that sold me my phone in Arizona, I like coached her for like 20 minutes. And I said, "You're hurting. I can tell." And she's painting again. And she was like, "You literally, like, in 10 minutes, like, switched everything around for me." Like, I wasn't even like, I just Googled that phone store. Right. And like, how did I know she was working that day? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I can't explain all that stuff, but that's the way I feel about relationships, meaning friendships, romantic.
Well, I think that's how relationships can expand from just our human level to a very spiritual level, and looking at your relationships as your place to expand yourself. And, I like to think of people like that as earth angels. Like, they're just floating around, like, waiting to be your messenger and your guide in hard times. And so I had someone tell me once that I'm an earth angel. And I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. I was like, I would really love to embody that. That's great. Yeah. So I think that that's where, like, relationships can become a very spiritual thing and a very fulfilling thing, because it makes your soul, like, just so happy and expansive. But like you said, there's an element of surrender, and there's an element of vulnerability that must exist in that dance. And I think that, when we get in relationship with other human, I look at all relationships as a dance. And so when you're in some kind of like messy relationship, typically it's like someone's trying to control the dance, and they're like, move this way. And you're like, but I think it's this way. And they're like, no, but move this way. And so you're not like literally dancing with each other and like figuring out and flowing as it goes. I think that's what like a true conscious relationship represents is the ability to move with your partner as they shift and as they grow, but also stay rooted in yourself. And that's where boundaries really come into play. So, but I could go down a whole rabbit hole there.
Yeah. We could talk for like 7 hours, but what I'm saying is like, that's the whole thing. That's the kicker. That's the holy shit moment in life, meaning people with their jobs, with their relationships, with friendships, they're trying to strangle the fucking life out of it to control it because they're trying to fit it in a pigeonhole when the universe is telling you to do this. Like, true story. We've got a lot of opportunities coming at us right now. And I looked at my producer and my assistant and I said, hey, there's this opportunity over here that we really want, but the universe is telling us this in our face. We're going to go down this route because it's the path of least resistance. And we're just going to go with the universe. We're not going to try to force us that way because that'll happen organically. And it's when you can let go of that and say like, okay, this is something like the signs are here. But
that's the ultimate form of self-compassion. You are listening to your calling and you're trusting yourself enough to know what's best for yourself. That is, I think, the highest form of self-compassion. It's not investing in yourself. It's not a bubble bath. It's not self-care. It's literally living your life in a way that's reflective of what your soul is telling you. So kudos to you. That's amazing.
No, two things. One, my friend told me last night, we were talking, she goes, there's something in your eyes that's telling me you're exactly where you need to be. And I can feel how powerful it is. And it's just so easy to you. Right. And that's like a holy shit moment where like the weight's off and it's like, okay, this is exactly where I need to be. And guess what? In 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, that might change. But for right now, I'm living in what I deem as really my calling. And it becomes so effortless when you stop trying to fight it all and just say, this is it. Like, and because then it washes away all the money needs, well, it should be like this. And like, it's just, okay, like, this is what I do. Like,
that's ease. Like, that's what, instead of, I like to think of living life on the edge, but being very flexible and at ease about that. It's not easy, but it's ease. And there's a massive difference between those two things. It's not like you're bypassing and living in la la land in woohoo space. It's like, no, I'm actually going with the current of my life right now. And I think that is a fucking beautiful place to be in. So
it's magical.
Really, it really is.
It is like when you have people that you've known for 25 years that look you dead in the face and go, I don't know who the fuck this guy is. Like, not only do I not know who this guy is, I know that this dude is going to go out and just destroy everything. Like, they go, look, we knew you were going to be successful. We knew you were always going to push it, but you were all over the place.
But how do you want to feel when you're doing it?
Yeah. But he said, right now, I just feel the power, like your energy, the whole room fills up and you're like, and like, it's just a different presence. And like you said earlier, by doing that, you're attracting the right people towards you. And it's a magical thing. But I want to respect your time. We'll probably do another one next week. I'm so pumped on this whole thing. Rick, you got hosed, bro. We killed this one. So I do want to talk just selfishly.
Okay.
Because you are a CrossFit, like you were crushing it in the CrossFit. And on what planet did you think that changing over to, because I'm dealing with the same thing right now. We're both training for Ironmans. We never done one before. What happened? What was the genesis? What are you finding out about the journey?
Oh, God. Man. So, the strength and conditioning CrossFit space. I started out in strength and conditioning, kind of evolved into CrossFit, really built a pretty successful business in that space, a successful platform. And I just decided that I think that my life is pulling me in a different direction. And I think that that's inwards. And so for CrossFit, it's a lot of outwards, a lot of community, a lot of socialization. And I just had this call to do something different that would challenge me to go inwards. And I knew that Rick had experience with coaching people through not Ironmans, but triathlons and endurance. So I was like, we kind of talked about it, but then I went home and I just signed up for it. I just said, screw it, I'm doing it. And he's like, holy shit. He's like, you're doing it? I'm like, well, it's going to happen. Going to do it. So I'll figure it out. I think that everything is figure outable. And oh my God, what I've learned in this process is more than what I even expected to learn. Like, I have become so much more honoring of my body than I ever was in the strength and conditioning space. And I think a lot of parts of me, it's been hard because a lot of parts of me have had to die off because I was validated for my image and my muscles and a lot of different things. And it's like, well, if you want to cross that finish line, that can't be your goal. You can't focus on aesthetics and being lean and cut and ripped and all these things. And it's like, you have to fuel yourself. You have to rest, or you are not going to cross that finish line. And so I think it's called forth so many different deep wounds that I've had around body image and validation and a lot of shoulds. And it's really helped me as a coach within my different programs to help other women kind of transcend that space. Because I always thought that I was like honoring my body, but there were certain little ways that the shadow would pop up and I wouldn't be. And so with this Ironman, I told myself when I signed up, when I clicked submit online, I was like, you're not going to half-ass this. Like, you are, and I mean that in every single way, and in training, in nutrition, in the mental aspect of it, you're not going to half-ass it. And that's, caused me to have, moments where I come home and I'm just like, fuck, like, you look different than you used to, but that's okay. You're also a hella athlete right now. So that's amazing too. And, doing this, I did my first half marathon run. Mind you, before this, never ran farther than 4 miles in my life. No endurance background ever. So after I did this half marathon, not only did I have to run it, but I had to run it with a heart rate under 145. So super low heart rate. That takes a lot of mental space when you know that you can go harder, but you're not supposed to. And so really controlling myself to dial it back, honor the system, get through it, honor the process. When I finished that race, because I did it under 2 hours too. So for me, I was like, dang, I thought it was going to take me 2.5 hours. So I was just so proud of myself, and it kind of circles around to letting myself have that, it's that is a massive win. And a lot of this training has went extremely well, knock on wood, but I'm really trying to let myself have it too. I think there's this kind of there's a celebration in CrossFit where you're celebrated for your strength and you realize your strength, and that's really cool. But there's also this self-mutilation kind of undertone there. And I think that that can't exist in this space. So
I'm going to make 3 points. This is officially my selfish time of the podcast. I have to tell you that you just changed my entire life.
Oh, dang.
No, because with the statement of I'm going to go inward, because that's what the Ironman training, you just shifted my entire mentality on my training. No, I swear to God, the whole thing. The second thing is is that when you said you have to honor your body, you literally just changed my entire life on that too. Because I've been looking at it all wrong. All of it wrong. All of it wrong. All of it. I fucking hate running. I hate everything fucking about it. I can't stand it. It's not fun. It's slow as shit. And I've been trying to get over this mental block for like a month. And I can't do it. I just can't. The cycling, please. I do that shit in my sleep. I love it. Swimming, I can get by. You just changed it all. Because if I can conquer this, then what? There's nothing I can't do. There's nothing.
Did you see that quote I put on my Instagram? It was by this, he's like some kind of monk, like a Buddhist monk, but he used to run like all the time. Mm-hmm. And he's like, do this meditation 5 minutes before you go running. And you have to visualize yourself not as the person that's running, but you are just the vessel that a spirit or God is running through. And so you look at yourself as the observer of that. And I've been doing that when it comes to like long runs. And it's like, oh, this is spiritual. I didn't think it would be, but it really is. It's like, oh, every day that I get up and I'm able to move, I had a couple knee injuries. So I really look at my movement as a blessing after that. But like being able to run, and certainly I'm not the best triathlete by no means. I feel like I'm like a tank out there moving. But when I actually meditate on that and do that, I'm just like, man, there's just so much like pride for myself for actually just going out and doing the thing, and it's not like there's not this obligation to do it. It's not constricted. It's not forceful. It's just
it's you
being and just really doing something. Like you, I did not like running at all. It didn't feel great. So
I'm going to tell you a story that's going to make you feel better, and you'll totally get where I'm coming from. Guys, we're reconciling our training right now. This is like our own support group. So when you cycle as much as I cycle, I know everything about my body on the bike. I mean, how I'm feeling, when to turn it up, when to turn it down. Two things I want to explain to you. My typical average, I try to keep it pretty low key on the bike. My typical average is 15, 16 miles an hour. Nothing crazy. I like to keep it low key, save some energy. I was in Scottsdale for 2 weeks. My friend's training for an Ironman. She's a part of an Ironman group. Hey, do you want to go ride with me? I go, sure, let's go. They're catching a 26 average.
Yeah, no.
Okay, so no, just hear me out. So ego, pride, everything is on the line. And I'm just laying 9 layers of my ego why they're fucking killing me. I mean, just literally I'm like, all right? But wait for it. The last 2 miles, I fucking smoked their ass. Like, I mean, put them in the dust. And what I let them know is I got something in the tank. And I didn't even know I had it, right? So this went on. We would ride like 3 or 4 times a week. Now my average is like, I can keep a 25. And that's a 10-mile difference. And what I'm basically telling that story is, this is how, when you surround yourself with people that are pushing it and doing better, that you as a person, especially my mentality, will raise my level. And you don't even know you had that in you, right?
Totally.
And they're teaching you all this new stuff about this and everything. But here's the story I really want to tell you. So Monday, I go out and I'm like, I'm going to go ride 30 miles. So it's at 5 a.m. I head out. I'm like on mile 7. And I'm like, dude, I'm like, get on the clock. Daddy's getting it. Daddy feels good. I'm like, my legs feel good. I was like, I feel strong. It's beautiful outside. And I was like, and then I got to like mile 12 and I was like, something's up. Like, I feel like something's up. This doesn't feel right. Well, at mile 15, I turned around. There was a 20-mile-an-hour wind in my face, like off the ocean. I felt like I was going 2 miles an hour.
Yeah, probably were.
And all I'm doing the whole time is screaming out, fuck, like over and over again. I'm so angry. Like, I'm like, because I got 15 miles of this. And but when I got done, I was like, you literally just shed like layers of yourself, right? And my buddy sent me in an Ironman group. He sent me a sign, and it said, "You have to understand that your legs will never give up on you. It's your mind that's negotiating with the distance." And I was like,
totally,
amen. Like, and I won that battle because I did it. And it may not have been pretty, and it may not have been great, but every time you do that, every time you push yourself past the point, you're stacking. Like,
yeah, I think that's honestly like what this training process has kind of given me too. It's like, oh, you can actually be a badass. Like at the same time, like you can be in your like feminine essence, but you can also be fierce as fuck.
Yeah.
You can be a strong athlete.
So here's your parting gift.
Okay.
I have my business mentor. He's my everything. He is so spiritual. It's like literally when we have a podcast interview, he needs to like process it for a minute and then he'll only respond. That's how deep he is, right?
I love those people.
He said, Austin, I need to introduce you. He said, Austin, this is what I want you to meditate on. You're two versions of yourself. The one version is a sonic boom, lethal assassin. This motherfucker is a killer. Like he is the dark side of you. He just has that extra gear. And at the same time, I want you to be able to look at a seagull flying or an ocean wave and be content in that too. And so he said, when you can mirror both sides of that human, you become the ultimate weapon.
Love that. Dang, so good. So good.
And I'm like, holy, that's it right there. Because the person that you need to be, meaning in your business, as a CEO, as a leader, you know those ships that break the ice? That's you as a CEO and a leader. And you have to break the ice when your team doesn't see it. But then you also have to console them when they're depressed. So you have to, as a leader, you have to control both sides of that coin. And when you can master that, that's the ultimate level up.
Yeah, totally agree. It's kind of circling back to what we first started talking about, is that like internal leadership. When you can actually lead your inner experience, you can help other people with theirs and help them kind of take ownership for their experience. And I think that ripple effect goes a long way, generations. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that we're kind of stopping the generational like obligation and restrictive life that like should be, and just letting ourselves just truly just crush it.
Yeah. So. Amen. So how do they find you? How do they find your stuff, your Instagram, all that kind of stuff?
So I'm at dbird20 on Instagram. Didn't think that I was going to have a lot of followers when I made that name. So dbird20 on Instagram, and then www.iamalphafemme.com is my website. And I have 2 different programs on there. The Embodied Warrior, which is the alpha side of my business, which is the more embodied strength and conditioning program. And then I have a Born to Heal program, which is the healing modalities that I coach people through. So,
wow. Guys, if you enjoyed this episode, I know I did. Holy crap. That's all I got to say. We're going to download afterwards. I don't even know what to say right now. My head is swimming. But thank y'all so much for listening. Thank you, Danielle, for coming on, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.